No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is a special edition of Outspoken. As you know, one of my favourite features on my former show at GB News was The Clash, and we have brought it back this week for a special run of shows where we debate the biggest issues in the world. Today, should King Charles abdicate to make way for William and Catherine to save the monarchy? Joining me, royal historian Rafe Heydel-Mankoo and author Anna May Mangan to clash it out. Now, remember, there is no Greatest Britain or Union Jackass this week because of our special edition of The Clash, but the Royal Uncancelled After Show continues as normal on Substack. That is after the main show, and you can join us there at www.outspoken.live. But now, let's go. The British monarchy, the most famous royal family in global history, is in genuine peril after the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and claims that King Charles helped pay £12 million in hush money to his brother's accuser, Virginia Giuffre. So a question that many would have thought was unbelievable just a few months ago is now seriously being asked, including behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace. So what do you think? Should King Charles abdicate to make way for William and Catherine and to save this great institution, just like you could argue the abdication of Edward VIII did so 90 years ago? To clash today, royal historian Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. He's a traditionalist who says absolutely not. But today he goes head-to-head with the author Anna May Mangan, who believes that Charles should go. So, great to have you both here. We're going to kick off with a minute for you each to put your case. Rafe, get going. Why should Charles stay?
Well, the question you've posed is that the monarchy needs saving, and I'm afraid there's no evidence for that. It's undeniable this is a great crisis for the monarchy, as big or bigger than Diana in 97 dying, as big as the 36 abdication crisis. But the polling shows that only a small minority actually want the monarchy to be abolished. They understand that you can't have institutional responsibility in the person of the king for the actions of his brother, and they quite rightly place the blame firmly on Andrew's shoulders rather than on the king. And an abdication is completely foreign to our constitution. There is no role for it in our system of government. We had it once in 1936. That wasn't an act of damage control. That was an act of huge volatility for the monarchy, for the constitution, and for the nation. So the idea that you're going to stabilize the monarchy by having an abdication is just wrong. You're actually going to destabilize it further and make it far less of the important role that it plays now as a symbol of stability and continuity. And
okay, Rafe, time is up. We will continue as we go. Anna May Mangan, why is he wrong? You've got a minute.
Right, I've got every respect for your knowledge and your historical knowledge, but I would approach this as a subject and as a woman who has children of her own. Now, if one of my kids came to me, and bear in mind I'm in very reduced circumstances compared to the royal family, and said, "Mum, can I have £12,000? Would I then write a cheque without saying, what for, why, what have you done, discussing it with the other members of the family? So they're all tainted by this now, because I believe that £12 million didn't come from one purse. I think that they collected the money, and that alone is a reason for investigating them. And the whole point of the monarchy has changed. I think what they fear now most is the indifference of people, and that's what people are. Not everybody, you're right, feels that that they should be abolished, or what's the word? He should abdicate. But the majority of people don't really care, and they're put off even more by what his silence and what he's doing. So I think he needs to understand that he has to modernise, he has to be more transparent, and he needs to speak to people. I mean, this business of just saying, I've handed him over to the police, there, wash my hands, I'm finished now, that doesn't work. It doesn't wash for people.
Time is up. Rafe, look at the cover of the New Statesman magazine. The crumbling house of Windsor. Now, yes, you can say that is a left-wing publication, but all of a sudden conversations are being had in this country that would have been unthinkable just a matter of weeks ago. Isn't the point that Edward VIII's abdication actually was allowed to usher in the second Elizabethan era. We have two people, the most popular members of the royal family, Rafe, Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, sitting there ready to go, and they have nothing to do with this hush money that Anna May Mangan talks about. Why would you not want them on the throne?
Because they will come to the throne in due course. Yes, you're quite right. They are the greatest assets to the monarchy, and the time will come when they will come to the throne. The king is not a young man, obviously, but we don't have a system where we dictate who takes the throne by popularity, by politics, and certainly not by the media in who decides. We have a constitutional process that must be followed. Yes, the monarchy does thrive on public consent, but as I've said, only a small minority believe the monarchy would be abolished, thereby showing that the king remaining is not damaging the institution. And in fact, the overwhelming majority of the British public believe the monarchy will still be there in 10 years and will still be there in 20 years. So this is not an existential crisis for the future of the monarchy, although it is hugely damaging. And as I say, the king has nothing to abdicate for, nothing to apologize for. He took his brother's words on faith. And a lot of this has been conducted in hindsight. There are things we know now that no one knew. Not even the MI5 and the Secret Services knew the things that came out of those Epstein files. At the time, there were questions around Virginia Giuffre. At the time of this happened, people didn't know whether she was real or not, whether she was telling the real story or not. And there was an expectation that Andrew was acting honorably.
Because she had lied about Alan
Yes.
Dershowitz.
And so there was a belief and an understanding. Benefit of the doubt was given to Andrew, and he behaved disgracefully by misleading his own family on this issue. This happened at the time of the Platinum Jubilee, and there was a great deal of concern that this was going to overshadow what should be the pinnacle for the monarchy, the first time in history sovereign had been on the throne for 70 years, and they wanted that story to go away. So given all of that and the lack of knowledge that we have now, it's quite understandable why they would just want this issue to go away, because they thought it would be a one-off. They didn't realise the floodgates that would open later
Anna
on.
May, let's just be honest about this, right? Let's lay our cards on the table. People like you just want to bring down the British royal family, and
That's
you're
not true.
using this. The lefties are using this instance to try and do so, and actually, that is destabilizing. It's almost British hatred.
I think that Prince Charles, in the position he's in at the moment, he's like the
King Charles, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, King Charles. I'm behind the times. I think that he is the Keir Starmer of the royal family. He's got no direction.
Shame.
He's not believing. He doesn't believe in anything. I mean, I know when
That's
he
the
was
most
younger.
offensive thing you could ever say.
I believe when he was younger, he was interested in green issues and architectural issues. But what now? I mean, what is he doing now apart from firefighting for his brother? And this business that he didn't know, and it was that he realised it was worse than No. I mean, if you'd gone to the chambermaid in the palace where apparently Andrew was bringing these girls in, they could have told you. The people who were washing the sheets could have told you that there was a lot of action going on in that room. His private police officers must have known. It's this lack that they complain about the media, but the media have expectations, as do the public, about what they're doing in return for the money that they get. And I think the Queen, she was faultless. Although I think she died in the nick of time, because there are questions about whether she knew what was going on with Andrew, and did she hand the money over out of blind love or fear or nerves? I don't know. But I'm glad that a woman of her age and who serves so diligently is spared this debacle that's going on now. And so I think people
blame
definitely
Charles,
know.
not the late Queen.
I think what Charles has done, but as I say, parcelling it over to the police and then saying nothing to do with me. And it literally is, because he can't, even if he was complicit in some way, he can't be prosecuted. Are they offering up Andrew? I don't know. But I think it's such a bad look. This is not able to be cleaned up. It's too extensive. There's too much talk now. And worse, indifference of the public to the monarchy is serious. Sneering at them, which is what's happening now. Look at the photograph of him in the back of the car. I mean, while there is an element of, oh gosh, isn't that marvellous to see him brought down like that, it's actually cruel, and it's not publicly. It should have been dealt with quicker, better, and he should have communicated. Charles should have communicated to the public about how this was being handled. But we still don't know. We know nothing.
Well, you have had greater transparency from the monarchy. I mean, this is the thing about the king. He has made great strides towards transparency. Those two last statements were unprecedented. To actually, firstly, to address his brother as Mr. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. We had never seen that prefix Mr. being used before. That was a clear sign. This is a private citizen. He must not have any fear or favour in front of the law, must be judged correctly and given over to the police. And he expressed his huge concern over that. We know how outraged Queen Camilla is on this because, of course, sexual violence and oppression of women and coercive behaviour are so central to her charitable endeavours. And it's hard to think what more the king could have done. I mean, he stripped him of all his titles. He has banished him from royal service. He's been basically sent to Coventry, essentially, by going into cold, windswept Norfolk, where everyone thought he would live out the rest of his days in silence. And then, of course, we had the release of even more Epstein files. The king has done all he possibly could to punish his brother. And I think
you're enjoying this, aren't you, Anna May? You were like, oh, look at that photo. Oh, and there is something quite grim about this. It's like you are enjoying. No, but you also said that you looked at that photo and you sort of loved it. There was something that loved it. And isn't this the worst type of celebration that we're seeing? Like, why are we celebrating the downfall of this man who was a war hero?
Because he's pretty vile, because he's handled his public, because he took the public for idiots. I mean, I think that's his biggest, well, not, of course, against the women is the worst, but it's a big crime, the way he's treated the public. And you talk about Prince Charles. What has he done, really? He's taken his brother and taken him out of a very big Tesco-esque mansion and put him in a smaller house with all his expenses paid. Andrew is like a hot air balloon. He's up there with no visible means of support. I mean, how is he paying for his lifestyle? They took his horse away. You know, really.
I think nobody has had a bigger humiliation than Prince Andrew.
And no one's got any pity for him.
No one has, and neither should they. Pride comes before a fall. Okay, I'm not going to defend the man, but what more could the king actually do?
What do you want, Anna? Do you want him in a council house? You do, don't you?
A flat would be nice. A flat, and he's also got 3 members of staff. He's still got, and he insists that they call him Sir, even now. That was reported last week. I mean, it's a scandal. It's scandalous.
You want his head on a stake, don't you?
I want him to pay.
Head on a stake.
I want him to pay for what he
did.
I want him to pay for what he did, and for him to respect the public that put up with his antics for so long. Not just his sexual deviances and the way he treated underage women. I mean, that's absolutely shocking and criminal. But the way he treated staff,
which he denies.
I mean, I've read the Andrew
Which he denies.
Yeah, well, of course he's going to deny it. He sat on Newsnight and lied until he was blue in the face.
Okay, but so you don't seem to want to believe in due process, though?
Oh, no, he must be processed. In fact, I'll tell you when I'll be happy, when he's found guilty.
You're saying he's guilty.
And I think he will be found guilty. There's so much evidence. Well,
but I agree with you, but that's not why the king should abdicate. Yes, by all means, fire your broadsides against Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. I would say he's fully deserving, even though, of course, he hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. That has to be remembered. And actually, the reason he's in Sandringham right now, my understanding is because the king is trying to keep him there, because Andrew would much more happily go off to the Middle East.
Yeah, of
He's
course.
got a palace waiting for him in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
They don't care about any of this. He would still have access to women in the Middle East. And he's got warm climates there as opposed to living in Norfolk in the winter.
Yes.
But the king wants to ensure that if the law does need to take him down, the law will be able to do that, which he wouldn't be able to necessarily in the Middle East. So again, the king is trying to do the right thing, and yet again he's being pilloried for it.
But there's an ulterior motive here, isn't there, Anna? Let's be honest about it. Anna May, there is, because you would like to see the destabilisation of the British monarchy, because deep down, the leftists want it to be destroyed.
I think you've got the wrong person, because I'm not anti-monarchist. I'm anti the way that Charles has dealt with this. He's an old man. He's a sick man. He's a man who appears to be out of ideas. He's a man who's got his ears and eyes covered over this issue and has done for many years. I mean, this hasn't happened in the last 6 months, has it? I mean, he must have... When was it? Was it 2022 that the 12 million cheque, if it was 12 million, telegraphed as it was,
yes,
was written? So he has planned this. I mean, he's got... And do you know what I don't understand about any of the royals? Because they've got not so much Kate and William, but look at Meghan and Harry and Prince Charles. They must have access to the best of PR, the best ideas, the best people, because for the kudos of working with them. And yet they've made a pig's ear out of all their public utterances.
Yes.
They never do it right. That puzzles me. That really puzzles me. But Charles is at the end of the road for a variety of reasons. And I'm not an anti-monarchist, and I'm actually not that left. I think you've made a mistake about that. But I do feel that the public are looking past Charles already.
Anna May,
they're looking for what comes next.
Anna May, you've got to admit, I mean, come on, I've debated you many times. And what you do have to admit is that there is an aim by the left in the United Kingdom to destabilise us by bringing down the monarchy. You have to admit that. And the abdication of King Charles would play into their hands, because all of a sudden you would be treating our brilliant hereditary monarchy, which has been such a centrepiece of our country for such a long time, as just another political game. It's like, this isn't a game. You can get rid of Starmer, have your fun there, leave our king alone.
I think that's a bit dramatic. We're responding to their behaviour. It's
This
not
is
that
our
we've
royal
got to knock on the
family.
door. They're behaving like they're in Downton Abbey here. Like, I'm not telling you anything. We're very grand. Like, stay away, no matter what we do. They're paying the price now for them looking the other way for too long. And also, we're not talking about like a small fraud or something of that nature. This is disgraceful, the way they treated these women and the way that they stood up for Andrew and the way that they took so long to deal with him. So I'm not asking to destabilise the monarchy. I have a lot of respect for the Queen, and I think that William and Kate will do a very good job because they seem wedded to duty. That's what the public expect. They expect, in return for the palaces, in return for the privileges, they want a sense of duty. They want to see them serving the public. And at the moment, this mess is just distracting from that. And there's a lot of very good causes that the royal family work for that aren't even getting mentioned at the moment.
But we do actually know where the public is on this, and the public don't think that the king should abdicate. The public, believe that only a small minority of the public actually are opposed to having a monarchy in this country as well as all of that. And actually, Dan, you made the point I was just going to make next. You may not want to destabilise the monarchy, but you will destabilise the monarchy by doing this. It's not a political office. You can get rid of a prime minister or a cabinet minister if you want to, but if you believe in constitutional monarchy, you have to believe in the right of hereditary succession and the constitution that comes with that. And, the monarchy is one of the few things in public life today that grounds us. It provides us with stability and continuity when everything else seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. And just at a time when we have the most weak and feeble prime minister, we have complete question marks hanging over his future. We've got, the rise of Green Party and reform. Politics has never been in more disarray. We don't know whether there'll be the possibility of having a majority government in the future. This is just the time when you need somebody, a stable figure in the person of the monarch who's above politics, who can provide that comfort to the nation.
And sometimes you have a monarch who's not great. Okay, like, I'm not sitting here comparing King Charles III to Queen Elizabeth II. I think, Rafe, and I know that you're very kind to our king, but I think when the history books are written, this probably isn't going to be a reign that you want to talk about and you want to remember. But at the end of the day, we just need to let time play out. That's how our system of hereditary monarchy works, Anna May. And actually, you're trying to punish a man who is literally, I'm going to say it, and again, Rafe will be horrified that I'm going to say this, but he is dying of terminal cancer, and you're trying to punish him. You're trying to take away a job that actually he waited his entire life for. Just give the man his couple of years on the throne.
He wasn't down a coal mine while he was waiting, was he? I mean, he had a very pampered, privileged lifestyle, a lot of influence, a lot of opportunities to do what he wanted. So, I mean, it's not boo-hoo about his wait. I mean, there's a good thing that his mother, who was exemplary at the job, was in it for so long. And actually, you're wrong that I just want to get rid of him for the sake of getting rid of him, because my biggest fear is President Sadiq Khan. I mean, how would that work out?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a possibility, isn't it? But it's not...
President Gary Lineker, President Tony Blair.
Yeah. So you're wrong. I mean, I actually have a space for the monarchy, but they have to modernise. They have to have a particular function that people respond to and respect. You see, what's happened is that this whole thing has washed out over everybody around them, and it has taken away the sense of respect that we have, which, coupled with intrusive media, has really sort of like made them more of an EastEnders, like an EastEnders episode than the royal family. It's down-valued them. And I don't like to see that. And that's why I would like to see a change. You're right, he's ill. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious he's ill. So that's another reason for him bowing out of this almighty, unholy mess.
Could he use that, though, in all seriousness? Like, this is not a guy who is operating in the way that you would like a monarch to act. And that is because of his health. He's still undergoing this regular cancer treatment. Could he not use his health as a respectful way to abdicate?
Not at this stage, certainly not. Look, the fact is, we should have every sympathy for him that the man is being so stoic in the face of all of this. Not only the cancer treatment, his son and his brother, he's still performing his duties. You say, he's not doing anything else but firefighting. The great problem is he is doing so much other stuff which is overshadowed by this. So he's not getting any coverage. Look, we have a very different monarchy to everywhere else in Europe and the world. We don't have abdication. The king was crowned in a Christian ceremony. Like his mother, he regards this as a sacrament. It's like becoming a priest. And these are vows that he took, a covenant with the nation. These are promises he's made for life. So he doesn't think that he can just step away from this role. And let me just also explain, you said that you were quite dismissive about his past, 50-odd years. This was a man, we could have had a Playboy prince on the casinos of Monaco and Monte Carlo for the last few decades. You may agree or disagree with his stance on interfaith dialogue, on the environment and other things. But if you look at what he did, homelessness, working with the poor of this country and the youth of this country and everything else, this is a man who, whatever your politics lies, you can't deny, he passionately believes in this country, in the people of this country, and he has dedicated himself for decades to improving the lot of people in this country, architecture, everything that you can think about.
And you want to take that away from him, Anna May?
So why didn't he control his brother, his wayward brother, if he was so influential and clever?
Well,
and
how
powerful?
can you do that?
By nipping it in the bud. If you've got a toddler, you don't let them keep throwing, yogurt at the wall. You stop them doing it. And why didn't he intervene earlier?
The monarchy is bigger than this single issue, and I think time will tell. We're in the heat of the fire. I think in a few weeks, months, whatever it's going to take, we'll be looking at this in a very different way.
The problem is, Rafe, this isn't like 1997, where the late Queen Elizabeth II was able to take a little bit of advice from Alistair Campbell and Tony Blair and go and deliver that speech to the nation from Buckingham Palace, which, let's be honest, she didn't want to do. She didn't want to be seen as a queen and as a grandmother, but she did it because she was able to take advice. Because there is a process here, a process that is spiraling, this could be reputational damage to the monarchy that lasts for months and years.
Yes, and of course we'll have to see how that plays out. But look, the beauty of the monarchy, the reason why the British monarchy has survived, whereas it's collapsed throughout Europe and elsewhere, is because the monarchy has modernized and adapted.
Okay, but Rafe, we are talking, though, about a situation. We've got to get real about the reality of what we are facing. And I want to put a scenario to you, and I know we're not there yet, but let's just imagine this scenario. Andrew is charged with a crime. That is a possibility. He's been investigated by 10 police forces. He's been arrested. He is charged with a crime. As part of his defense, because he doesn't plead guilty, because why would he plead guilty? That would mean a certainty of a prison term. He's not pleading guilty to save his brother. I don't believe that. So he pleads not guilty and fights this in court. And as part of that case, there's a whole load of things that could come up about King Charles, including the fact that £1.5 million of his money was used in this £12 million payoff to Virginia Giuffre. So he did know about it in some way. And this is his court. This is the king's court. How can he stay on the throne in a scenario like that, even constitutionally, let alone reputationally?
Yeah, well, first of all, that's a hypothetical. We have no idea
but
how things will get. It's possible. But I would also hope that, Andrew is willing to lay down his life for Queen and country in the Falklands War. I would hope if he has one shred of decency left, he'd be willing to lay down his life for the institution. Because one thing that the royal family do understand, members, is that the monarchy is bigger than them. And I would hope that he would realise at that point that he does need to take a stand. He doesn't want to be the prince who actually led to the huge institutional damage. I wouldn't say downfall, because as I said, I don't think the British public are there. But as I've already explained, that the king took his brother on his word. There were questions about Virginia Giuffre. They didn't believe that there was a huge floodgate about to open. We're talking about all of this from hindsight. I think the British public would understand. Also, we had the Platinum Jubilee that had to go off without any cloud overhanging it. I think we've already dealt with that. I don't think actually it will be as dire a situation as you were predicting.
But that's morally justifying paying the money. Okay, now that's a reputational question, but I'm talking about the constitutional question. I mean, look at the Paul Burrell trial, which collapsed, and that collapsed because Paul Burrell said, "Well, I need to call the late Queen," and the Queen knew she couldn't be giving evidence in her own court.
Well, the King wouldn't give evidence either, but you could have his aides would give advice on his a testimony on his advice. But the point is, of course, the King is not going to collapse over this. I mean, it's not an issue. This would be hugely embarrassing for the monarchy. No one's saying that this wouldn't be a damaging scenario. It wouldn't lead to a decline in support for his role as king, perhaps as well. But that's a far leap to say that that's actually grounds for abdication, or that it would lead to the need to save the monarchy, which is the issue we're debating. The monarchy doesn't need saving. It just needs to get through this. The monarchy has weathered so many storms
Anna
in the
May's
past.
rolling her eyes.
Well, the monarchy has weathered so many storms.
Get
It will
through
weather
it.
this.
Get through it. Underage girls, illicit sex. I mean,
But it's not the king who was involved in all of that. It was his
No.
brother, who's not a working royal, who has no role to play within the monarchy, and who
No.
has been penalised and punished every way imaginable by the monarchy. And
Has he?
everything now-
Sorry.
and-
Has he been locked in a cupboard then for the last 15
Well,
years?
I'm
Does
not-
he not know what's going on? If the protection officers know what's going on, if the palace staff know what's going on, if his mother knew what was going on, if Fergie knew and the daughters
Well, I
knew
don't
what was
know
going
whether
on,
the Queen knew
Charles
what was
is
going
the
on.
only
You have to
person. What
remember
was he
the-
in headphones in a cupboard?
The Queen was 96, when she died, and all of this came out.
Well, she was capable of writing a big fat cheque, wasn't she?
Well, I don't know whether she was actually. She was in her 90s, and I think
Suffering from terminal cancer.
Yeah, it's a big stretch.
I mean, Anna
to
May,
think,
you say you love the Queen.
I don't. I
Well,
respect
come
the Queen.
on,
I respect
come on.
the Queen.
Well, what you're doing right now is trying to destroy her legacy.
I don't think
and
anyone-
I can't stand for that, Anna May.
I am not doing that, and I
Well,
think
you're just saying she wrote a big fat check.
Yeah,
and
she
so
did.
what you're suggesting
And
is
there was
that the late Queen
there was
did
no
something wrong.
suggestion that she wasn't compos mentis at the time of her death. In fact, she welcomed Liz Truss to the palace. Was it days before her
but the
death?
idea
I was
that she
doing
was-
her duties.
But the idea that a woman in her late 90s is over all the details of everything, was being briefed all the time.
There was effectively
This
a
is just
regency.
proving a £12 million check. This is just proving they are on another planet from us. Oh,
No.
Yes. And also that check, it points to all sorts of other problems. We don't know, we don't see their wills. They're all put away in a vault, aren't they? We don't see, they don't pay inheritance tax. They pay selective taxes on other things. We don't know what their finances are. We don't know what they're up to. And they're kind of like governing us in a obviously not in a political way, a non-political way, but they're like leading the charge for the country culturally, I think, in a lot of senses. So why don't we know more about them? Why aren't they more transparent? And this has blown it all up now. So now it's time. It'll never go back in the box now.
I'm not arguing with you on that issue. That's another discussion entirely about greater transparency in the monarchy.
Yes.
We can have a debate about that. I think there are the era of never complain, never explain is out of the window. Well, particularly in this case, because it's not justifiable any longer.
Yeah.
But that's a different debate as
Totally.
to whether the king should abdicate.
Totally. But I am just going to say very clearly here that I do not, and actually, weirdly, Anna May, you're going with the king's argument, because what the king's courtiers are trying to do is blame it on Queen Elizabeth II. She's not here. She's not here to defend herself. And I think it's despicable and disgusting. And I think Rafe is completely correct to point out the fact that by the time the settlement was reached, the late Queen was suffering from bone and blood cancer, which we didn't report at the time.
Mm-hmm.
She was absolutely focused on her duty. But you have to remember, she would spend weeks to just get herself ready for one engagement. I remember when she opened the Elizabeth line. Do you remember that? At Paddington Station just before the Jubilee, and no one had expected her to be there. I'd actually bumped into one of her friends on the street just near the palace who had said to me she had been undergoing blood transfusions. You know, the lady in waiting put it in quite a funny way, actually. You know, she's getting young people's blood pumped into her. That was the gist, because she was so determined for duty.
Yes.
Now, to suggest that she could be a cross, I mean, this legal document, the settlement with Virginia Giuffre, my understanding is that it ran to hundreds of pages. The idea that the late Queen was at all involved in that settlement, Charles was effectively running the monarchy at that point. So again, I don't really agree with either of you on this.
Well, there you are then.
Because I'm
So,
also not agreeing with Rafe in terms of the fact that the king had nothing to do with that settlement. But I just feel like trying to throw the late Queen Elizabeth II under the bus over this is
I'm
wrong.
certainly not doing that. But I think that if you're a parent, and I don't know if either of you are, that
No.
a wayward child doesn't present you in his 50s. I mean, you would know. And according to the Andrew Lally book, which I found very well researched.
Entitled.
Yes. He talked about lots of episodes where the Queen bailed him out over the years. I mean, I don't know if you've read it and you're familiar with that.
Look, the late Queen Elizabeth II believed in Andrew's
Yes, she did.
innocence. I reported, I mean, it's become quite infamous actually, but I reported and was the first to report that the morning after, remember Andrew's Newsnight interview, he had gone to church with the late Queen at Windsor. And he told her, went swimmingly and everything's going to be okay. And she believed Andrew, and she allowed Andrew to usher her into the memorial service for
That's
the
right,
late
I remember
Prince
that.
Philip. But a mother's love for her son, I think, is very different to a cold, hard reality check in terms of what he was actually doing. And I don't think there was any way that she could know. But look, as the crisis for the British royal family deepens after the release of the Epstein files, there is another big question. Should Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the disgraced former Duke, and his daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, who I have to be honest, are now implicated in this scandal too. I know a lot of you feel sorry for them, but they didn't play this correctly, in my opinion. Should they be removed from the line of succession? So the clash continues now with royal historian Rafe Heydel-Mankoo and the author Anna May Mangan. Anna, let's start with you this time. 1 minute. Why should Andrew, Beatrice and Eugenie be removed from the line of succession?
Well, it's obvious why Andrew should be removed, because he's under criminal investigation. It sounds as though he was in cahoots with passing over sensitive information about the country. So, that, I mean, in my opinion, that's a form of treason. So, he has no place in the line of succession. I mean, the worrying thing is, I mean, look at all the bombs that have been going off. We really are. We have to be careful because there's not a lot of them now, and he's dangerously close to high up in the line of succession. His daughters, I think, they have travelled with him a lot on business trips, particularly to the ones in the Middle East. They've also been present at a lot of the pictures in the palace. And I think that they have developed a little black book as a result of Andrew's connections, which are not always savoury, wholesome. And if they were out there...
There's your minute. We'll continue this conversation. Rafe, why should Andrew, Eugenie and Beatrice stay in the line of succession? Your minute starts now.
I find this such a remarkable and ridiculous thing to be discussing. You know, he is 8th in line to the throne. The chances of him becoming king are as remote as the person who's 1,000th in line to the throne. I mean, never in history has anyone who's even 4th in line to the throne been realistically expected to become king of this country. This is not an issue of morality. This is an issue of the constitution and of the institution of the monarchy. This is decided by law. It goes back to 1701, the descendants of the Electress Sophia of Hanover. The line of succession is huge. It covers thousands of people, including people who are Catholics and others as well. You can't just tamper and do away with the principle of hereditary succession. If you believe in the monarchy, you believe in the principle of hereditary succession. I would also say, even if it was closer to the throne, like Prince Harry, I don't think he should be removed from the line of succession. Again, there's no chance in hell that anyone's going to become, but it would open a huge can of worms constitutionally and globally around the Commonwealth realm. So you will be basically doing something which has no real value, with the potential risk of leading to republics around the Commonwealth.
Okay, time's up. Anna May, look, the point that Rafe is making here is that people like you are using this to try
Rafe.
and effectively undermine the monarchy. Because, of course, if you take individuals, right, like, yeah, you don't want Andrew there, but you don't want Harry there either.
Fergie.
But actually, well, she's not in the line of succession,
Well,
thank God, because she's not a
They've
blood
been married
royal.
until he dumped her
Yeah.
recently. They've been together.
But of course, you've got to be a blood royal to be in the line of succession.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. It is our system. And so you've just got to accept that's the way a hereditary monarchy works. And a hereditary monarchy is a good thing.
There's more than one way for a monarchy to look, though. I mean, there's a place in Malaysia, I'm not sure where exactly where, but there's a monarchy there, and they get elected every 5 years. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we do that, but
They have There are 8 monarchies in Malaysia, and they all rotate. So
Yeah,
I don't know whether you want to have more kings than there are currently.
My point is that there's more than one way of doing this, and we shouldn't accept, just like we wouldn't accept a bankrupt and emotionally, morally bankrupt political system. Why should we accept the royals in that condition? I mean, they've been disgraced. Everyone's been laughing at Andrew and Fergie for years, haven't they, really? The profligate spending, all the things that she was up to, the lack of money, the fake sheikh selling access to the royals. I mean, we've been watching that in the Sunday papers for years and thinking, oh, well, yeah, they're not too, let's put up with it. It's not too bad. But actually, it's gone on now. And now we're talking about sexual exploitation. It is bad and it is irrevocable and something's got to change. And I think Charles has managed to deal with it in a way that he hasn't actually addressed it. He's talking about it without addressing it. And Beatrice and Eugenie are, in my opinion, are at the heart of this. One of them is in business. She does a lot of business in Dubai, which is where her parents will probably end up. And they made those connections on trips, with like taxpayer-funded trips abroad with him.
Yeah, I mean, Rafe, we do have to have a conversation about these two princesses, right? Because they do retain these titles, Rafe. And for a long time, people have been saying, oh, poor Beatrice and Eugenie. And I sort of got it, but I never really felt that way because I'd seen these two on the scene. And I think, unfortunately, they did pick up some of the terrible habits of their parents. But for me, Rafe, where the line was crossed, unfortunately, was the meeting with Jeffrey Epstein just 4 days after his release from prison. He had been in prison. Now, you can talk about it however you want, but he had been in prison in Florida. Okay, it was a very soft sentence, but for child sex trafficking. And I was thinking about it from my scenario. And remember, I'm not a member of the royal family, right? My mum and dad, who I adore and who I trust 100% to never put me in a terrible situation, they said to me, oh, Dad, we're going to meet my friend Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, Mum and Dad, okay, great. Where's he been for the last 18 months? Oh, he's been in prison. What for? Child sex trafficking. You know, the first thing I'm doing, I'm going on Google, I'm researching this guy, and I'm saying to my mum and dad, I love you, but I'm just not coming. I just have zero interest in seeing this guy. And actually, I'm a princess. So I'm definitely not going to put the royal family at risk. And they were 19 and 21 years old. These were not young children, Rafe. I'm sorry. Does that meeting alone make it completely inappropriate that one day they could take the throne?
One day they're never going to take the throne.
But they could.
They will
They could.
They couldn't. Really, we don't live in a world where King Ralph the movie was a reality, or Kind Hearts and Coronets is going to happen, where the entire. I mean, for heaven's sake, Prince George and Prince William don't fly in the same plane now that he's 12 years of age, in order to ensure that the succession line doesn't get whittled down.
The odd helicopter, though.
I'm not here.
I'm
not here to defend Andrew. I'm not here to defend Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie by any stretch of the imagination. Although I would say you just said that they trusted their parents 100%, but you're assuming that they asked their parents what Jeffrey Epstein's background was, where he'd been the last 18 months. Maybe they didn't ask. When I was 19, I wouldn't be asking those sorts of questions.
But she's 21 years old.
19 and 21, I wouldn't be asking those questions. I get to probably taken by my parents to see umpteen people in a week. So we don't know whether that conversation was happened. There are accusations that have been made and have been alleged. I've not seen strong evidence to point to anything at this stage. If it comes, let it come. But that doesn't look. The line of succession is not a popularity concept, a contest. It rests upon the Constitution, the Act of Settlement, 1701, and the 2013 Succession to the Crown Act. And let's be clear here. You cannot just act unilaterally in this country to change the line of succession. If you want to change the line of succession under the Statute of Westminster 1931, you need to consult all the realms. There are 40 other realms. Canada, Australia, New Zealand would have to pass their own legislation. Countries in the Caribbean would need to formally consent.
They want it.
And if
they want Andrew
there are you need to have unanimity. You need to have all 14 do this. That's going to open up a can of worms. There are Republicans around the Caribbean and elsewhere who are dying for this to happen so they can reignite this debate and say, well, if we're going to discuss this, let's do away with the monarchy. I could see Jamaica leaving the Commonwealth over this. Also, we know that the Caribbean nations want to have reparations. They want British taxpayers to pay trillions of pounds for slavery and colonialism. They could say, well, we're not going to consent. We're not going to give you unanimity if you don't pay us reparations. So for a pointless symbolic gesture of removing these people who will never become king and queen, you're risking the future of the monarchy and the Commonwealth and potentially putting British taxpayers on the line.
So let's give them all power. The insane,
Who's saying that?
the perverted, the stupid, the criminal. Let's bring them all in and put them in the line of succession.
Well, they are already in there.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not adding criminals in. We're just basically...
Thank you for making my point for me. So what you're suggesting is because it's too much trouble and because it's written in the history books, we should go under a big rock and let them all do what they like.
If you believe in monarchy, you can't just pick and choose who becomes king and queen in this country.
So the country has no right. So we give them money.
Hereditary succession.
So we give them money. And they have a role. They play a role in creating our world, and we don't have any say in it. We really are subjects. Then that's the way you see it.
If the monarch was facing, if the monarch was facing the charges that Prince Andrew could potentially be facing, then yes, there would be a case for abdication.
Yeah.
If the heir to the throne were facing the charges that Andrew Mountbatten were facing, there would be a question about the line of succession. But we're talking about the eighth in line to the throne. It is so beyond the realms of realism that this person will come within a hair's breadth of the monarchy.
Work in London?
It doesn't matter, and you don't for something that's never going to happen. You don't start tampering with an ancient constitution, which has so many repercussions around the Commonwealth and for British taxpayers. It's absolute madness. How much more do you? I mean, let's go the full way. Tar and feather, Andrew. Have him ride naked through the streets of the city and of this country. Look,
well, there's some of the families or the women that he abused that might like that.
If you want to use parliamentary
Allegedly.
time, if you want to use parliamentary time, because this has to take up time in Parliament, maybe get the Prime Minister to strip him formally of his peerage titles, because in law,
but Rafe,
the king can't do
enough.
that.
People are demanding more. I mean, the problem you've got. Well, the problem you've got now is that you've got the Prime Ministers of New Zealand and Australia openly advocating for Andrew to be removed. We've got Labour sources briefing that actually this could all be done within 6 months. They've got a plan in order to do it. And I almost feel like it was the boy who cried wolf in terms of removing Andrew off his titles to begin with. Because remember, we were told, oh, this could never happen. It's impossible. And then all of a sudden, overnight, it did happen.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen. He is still legally Duke of York. He's also an Earl and a Baron. He's not His Royal Highness the Duke of York. He's His Grace the Duke of York. All the King can do is stop him using the titles formally, but legally he remains. Only Parliament has the power, because peerage titles are a form of property, and it's a long-standing principle. The monarchy cannot take your property away from you. Only the elected representatives in Parliament can do that. So the King has done all he can. The ball is in Keir Starmer's court. If he wants to strip him of those titles, I would say, for a man who takes his title so seriously, that would be a real punishment for Andrew, who is so proud, rather than removing him from the line of succession, which means absolutely nothing.
For proud, I would swap arrogant, and you've just made my case for me. Then saying that it doesn't matter what they do, we have to put up with them. That's more or less what you're suggesting.
I'm saying you can punish him by stripping him of his title. Crack on. Yes, I'm all for stripping him of his titles if you need to, but the line of succession is a constitutional issue with huge repercussions in many ways, and it's a silly thing to do when it's never going to happen.
Rafe, I've got to paint another hypothetical for you then, and this is not beyond the realms of possibility. Okay, Andrew is under a police investigation, has been arrested. He's charged. He's found guilty in court. What you're suggesting is that someone who could be serving a lengthy prison term for essentially treasonous behaviour, if he does go down for misconduct in public office. I know we're a few steps away from that, but the police at least believe that there is enough evidence to investigate. You're saying that he remains eighth in line to the throne. Now, what I'm saying is I completely understand where you're coming from on a constitutional basis, right? I am a big royalist, a big monarchist. But I guess, Rafe, I would say I'm also a realist. And I understand the British public and I understand the media. And I just think that will not stand, Rafe. So we might as well do it now, because the idea that we're going to have eighth in line to the throne, a potential criminal serving time, that could bring down the monarchy. So even though I listen to all of your arguments about potential destabilization and all of that, I think we have to deal with the situation that we're in, and Andrew has to go. And actually, what could happen here, Rafe, in my view, is that this could be used for for the modernization project, which William is planning anyway, which means also, let's just deal with this at once, get rid of Beatrice and Eugenie too, strip their titles at the same time, and remove Harry and his 2 children as well.
Oh, 100%.
And remember, Rafe, there are question marks about the births of Archie and Lily anyway, so I think there are ways to do that quite easily.
Well, the problem, if you strip Harry and Andrew out of the line of succession, are you going to strip also Edward out of the line of succession and others? Because you're going to get to a point there. We've had it in the past where royal families do go extinct if you suddenly limit the line of succession to William and his children. There's every possibility that in the future we'd have to find a new royal house.
No, I think Edward and Anne.
We have lines of succession for a reason. It's not a popularity contest. This is not a morality line. This is not a list about who's going to be beatified as a saint next. This is simply a line. And once you start tampering with the line of succession, what's that? What is the new protocol then? What is the test, the threshold at which you strip somebody
I would say service, duty.
There are thousands of people in the line of succession who could basically fall under that. You know, Princess Caroline of Hanover had criminal convictions, I think, at some point. She's in the line of succession. The reality is, if it's so close that you're in the third in line to the succession, I can see this being an issue. If you're eighth, you're basically 1,000th or you're 10,000th. It's never going to happen. It's too risky to go down all of this. And I would hope, it's a complicated issue constitutionally. That's why the British public, I think, would need to be sort of educated on this. Hopefully listen to this, and some will change their minds once they realise how ridiculous an argument it is, given the fact that the cons outweigh the pros so dramatically.
And I wish people would listen to you, and if they did, I think maybe they would understand. But the reality is, Rafe, that isn't happening, and it isn't going to happen, because what you've got is a tabloid media who desperately want to find an easy way to make changes to save the monarchy. You know, the tabloid media is in favour of the monarchy, but they know that they have to give some red meat to their readers. And the politicians are pro this. I mean, we have a hard left government. People don't admit it, but the politicians certainly want the line of succession to be changed. I think even Starmer, the Prime Minister, wants this to happen because he sees this as an easy political victory. So I just feel it's unrealistic to see a way where Andrew and his daughters are going to stay in there. So why not do this now and take the PR win?
There's another way to clean up the mess, though. They could come out and speak. Beatrice and Eugenie could say, look, we realise we're sullied with this. We're going to we're not going to act as princesses, and we're going to spend our lives not making profits for people in the Middle East of dubious connections. We're going to do service. We're going to have a life of service.
They're never going to give up those titles.
No, of course, but that's why they should lose them. But yeah, but there is that. It's another way. And another way of doing it is halfway, where Charles describes what's happening, describes the limitations of his role and how it couldn't work, but what he would like to do and how he feels about what's going on as well. And just try and win people back. I just think that the public have turned their back on them.
I mean, Rafe, silence, I don't get that. And I don't think it is sensible at all.
No, look, I think there needs to be greater transparency, and I fully suspect that after this we're going to see again a very different monarchy than the monarchy that started this reign. But I do think,
but why haven't we heard from Charles?
I think the fact that Andrew is potentially facing criminal charges, could end up in prison, has lost everything, lost all his standing and status and honours and offices, has become a huge pariah, can't go anywhere now in this country without fear of being booed and so forth. Trying to go down the line of succession route just seems really vindictive now. It's almost like the mob in the street just baying for blood, finding anything that they can do now to damage this man. I think he's behaved despicably. Even though he hasn't been found guilty in a court of law, I think his conduct has been absolutely appalling. But I think now we're just going into the realm now. We're just trying to beat a man who's already on the ground.
Anna?
Well, I think he should go into a room with the survivors and their families and listen to what they have to
Yeah,
say.
well, fine.
You know,
Let
and
that
so
happen.
saying that he's pilloried for. It's not like he's been out sweeping the streets and helping old people with their shopping, is it? I mean, he's been absolutely catastrophic in his conduct.
Yeah,
and that's why he's
I'm
getting
agreeing with you.
what he deserves.
And
Also, he's having a supported life. He's not even going. I mean, you know, my husband worked 46 years before he retired. Has Andrew done that? He's got a pay. What's he got? He's got a £20,000 Navy pension and some. Where's the other money coming from? How is he paying his bills? Who is paying his bills?
Yeah, those are fine other questions to have.
No, they're
This is
very
not the line
to
of
the
succession.
public.
If you want
to the
him
public,
to go in,
that's why he should be gone.
If you want him to go into a room with the victims
Yeah,
of
face
Epstein,
it.
absolutely, go for it. I don't mind all of that. I'm saying the line of succession is not a morality issue. It's not a popularity contest. It's part of
But
the
it is a
Constitution.
popularity
And there are
contest.
huge risks and repercussions to this. We could be seeing the end of the monarchy in the Commonwealth realms.
Well,
if
we
we
want
go
no
down
more
this
like
path.
him, do we?
We could be held hostage by Caribbean nations over this. I think you can't dismiss those things lightly.
I mean, Anna, that is such an important point, isn't it? These Caribbean nations want to bankrupt the United Kingdom. The types of reparations that they are demanding would literally see us destroyed overnight. And actually, a bloke like Sir Lenny Henry, who takes that title, Sir, wants to bankrupt us with the most ridiculous demand for reparations. And I am really worried about what Rafe is saying here. Because if these Caribbean nations decide to use the political pressure that there is in the United Kingdom to remove Andrew and Beatrice and Eugenie from the line of succession and effectively barter with us to open the door to reparations, that is so dangerous. And that would put me off, I have to admit. I've been very much pro removing Andrew from the line of succession, but that is a huge concern for me.
Well, I don't think it needs to be right now. Dealing with him is the first issue, and that then maybe the public then will see a change, and it won't go as far as reparation and all of that. I mean, surely that can be managed. I mean, I just think that's a red herring, an excuse for not acting. I don't think anyone's taking what he's done seriously enough in this room to be actually, to be talking about the wider political fallout from it. Okay, let it happen. Let it happen because the public are sick of it. And Charles, I mean, that sounds like an excuse dreamt up by the flunkies at the palace. Like, let's put it to them that if we don't do.
Anna May, I've got to pick you up on that because I'm the person who has been speaking about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his alleged crimes since 2011.
But you've hauled the Caribbean.
2011, when no one like you was interested. You just jumped on the bandwagon, Anna May, when all of a sudden this was an opportunity.
I don't know what you mean by me.
Well, okay, like you, commentators who are all of a sudden
so we should shut up, should we? We should shut up.
I'm not saying you
should
shut
let the
up.
royals have their fun. Let the royals spend our money. Let the royals do what they like, and we'll all look the other
Anna
way.
May, you said, I'm responding directly to something that you said about me and Rafe, because you said that the people in this room are not taking Andrew's alleged crimes seriously enough.
Administrative
and I am very
and
offended by that because I was at the News of the World in 2011, and you can say whatever you want about the News of the World, right? The newspaper shut down soon after because of the phone hacking scandal. But in 2011, I was at the News of the World when we published those pictures of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, then Prince Andrew, in Central Park with Jeffrey Epstein. I need to remind you that without those pictures, there would be no Epstein files.
No.
Full stop. It was only those pictures that revealed to the world the fact that Andrew had this dodgy relationship with a paedophile. And remember, Anna May, for 15 years, the deep state and the British establishment tried to cover it up.
Yes.
So you cannot, go back and look at everything I've said about this for 15 years because people are always throwing this at me.
Word.
Oh, why do you speak about Harry and Meghan? What, so it's not that I do not take the allegations against Andrew seriously.
15 years.
I take them of utmost seriously, and I was disgusted
Time's up, isn't it,
by
now?
the cover-up.
Time's up.
Well, I think it should have been up 15 years ago.
That's what the public
I'm
think as well.
disgusted by the fact that the police never investigated, for example.
But then they probably weren't allowed. I mean, at what level was this concealed? I mean, that's the other thing. We know nothing. We know nothing of this, do we?
Yes.
And then he went on. That picture in the park that you referred to.
You should take back saying that I do not take seriously Andrew's.
Both you chaps have just talked about all the admin,
constitutional
political,
implications.
reasons why it's not a problem.
Real world consequences.
I think the victims of the real world have experienced the real world consequences of Andrew and Epstein, and God knows what Mandelson was up to in his knickers in that apartment in Paris.
Yeah.
All of them, and the public are up to here with it now. Up to here. We don't want to hear about the Constitution.
So Rafe,
we want our
that
king.
is a fair point from Anna May. That is a fair point. Essentially, what she is saying is that forget the constitutional implications here, Rafe. I know that's your job. I know that's what you have to think about. But you've got to think about the fact that the public simply will not tolerate the idea of Andrew as eighth in line to the show. They're just not going to tolerate it, Rafe. That's what Anna May is saying.
I don't see
and
any,
I sort of understand that.
I don't see any evidence for that. I think they're sensible enough to know that when you're eighth in line, you're never going to get to the throne. There's no realistic issue on that front. And I think once you tell the British public, well, yes, if you want to have this meaningless act for symbolism, go ahead. But you are going to have to pay potentially reparations, as it's going to hurt you in the wallet. I think opinion's going to change very dramatically there. There's one final thing. There's one final thing we haven't discussed. And, one of the reasons Barbados became a republic was because China wants to destabilize Britain globally. And by doing that, they want to basically get all the Commonwealth rebels to become republic. So China has been paying Barbados secretly. That's one of the reasons they went to become a republic.
Yes.
If they see the line of succession being debated amongst the Commonwealth realms, China's going to be right in there, offering them all sorts of sweet deals to basically block this and abolish the monarchy in order to basically diminish Britain's standing globally. I think, yes, awful things that Andrew did, but the real world consequences for Britain in soft power, geopolitics, and for millions of people around the world who live under a monarchy would be profound and are too risky.
Anna May, that is such an important point. And this is what we all have to think about, right? Like, you would be empowering China under this arrangement.
I just think that this makes what Andrew and his cohort, his circle, even worse. It makes it worse, doesn't it? Because look at you're saying that these consequences will fall down on us, but the trouble is, though, that what's happening with the public now is that they want change, they want to hear from Charles, and most importantly, I think that they're going to become indifferent if nothing changes. And indifference to a royalty is even worse than disliking them. I mean, what are they there for if we're not interested in them?
But life's not going to change. Life before he's removed from the line of succession and life after is going to be exactly the same for everybody.
But people will feel vindicated.
But it's not about feelings and emotions. This is about real-world consequences for Britain globally, not to mention our trade and everything else that we have involved with these countries.
Well, good luck going and presenting that to the great British public.
Well,
I don't think it will wash.
I think they'll be very convinced by such an argument, actually.
This is the problem, though, isn't it, Anna May? Too often we just give in to sort of woke, wet hysteria rather than actually thinking, okay, we can deal with the problem that way, but we don't need to be hysterical in a way that is going to undermine our country in other ways.
What's making someone who allegedly was having sex with underage girls a wet, woke
Well, no, I'm talking.
theory?
I'm talking about by saying we've got to take everything away from Andrew. And I do think it is a woke and wet argument, I'm sorry, in terms of saying, okay, because of what happened with the accusers of Epstein, we have to undermine Britain's constitution. I do think that is sort of the woke and wet arguments that are made, because they're all about destruction of everything, right? That's what happens in a scenario like this. Actually, we're not thinking here about the wider consequences.
So what's your solution to it then? What would you expect?
Well, I do think Rafe has made a very convincing point to me. And what I would like to see before we go down this path is a certainty that this would not be used by the Caribbean nations to demand reparations. I think that's very important. But I don't think there's a way that we could do this without understanding that China would be trying to undermine our entire British royal family. So while I do totally agree with you that there are huge PR issues in terms of keeping Andrew in the line of succession, especially if he is found guilty, I think we do have to have a more honest conversation about the consequences.
Yeah, I think they should have opened the doors, opened the windows a long time ago, and we wouldn't be in the situation where we are now. I heard someone speaking who worked for the royal family, and he said that when Andrew got out of bed in the morning in his gym jams, he'd pass a member of staff on the way to get his breakfast, and the member of staff would say, "Good morning," and Andrew, then formerly Prince Andrew, would say, "F off." That was his greeting for his staff in the morning. So I think that's
Rafe, a guy like that shouldn't be in the line of succession, should he?
But the fact that he was able to do that for so long, it kind of, I know this.
It's
I know
not a popularity contest or a moral contest. We can't pick and choose and start tampering with things, because then where does it end? Just, well, I don't like this person. I think he's like an obnoxious
earn the
person.
respect,
He has to
Rafe.
get out of it. Well, that's a big test to go down, and you're never going to please everybody in the nation, are you? So you're always going to have a contentious person there.
Yeah.
As I said, if it's in the first 3 lines of the throne, I can understand it.
Okay,
After
but what
that-
about King Harry then? I think that would actually destroy the British monarchy.
Again, he's too
We
far.
would,
away.
we would never accept that.
He's never going to become king either. I mean, this is just ludicrous
Well, no, no,
discussions.
no.
We're
There's
never
not
going to
enough
have-
money in the monarchy to
I mean,
satisfy Meghan.
None of us ever want to. That's true. None of us ever want to think that something like this could happen, Rafe. But of course, you only need one terrible terrorist attack to take out William, Catherine, and their 3
dear.
children.
Horrible thought.
Well, of course, but that is why we
Yeah.
have a line of
Yeah.
succession. I mean, it is to prepare for that. And so, I mean, I know I'm sort of now convincing myself the other way, but I am just thinking a King Harry and a Queen Meghan would actually kill off the British royal family anyway. It would. We wouldn't accept that as a country, Rafe.
Yeah.
Honestly,
But just
we
think
wouldn't.
all our bananas would have nice messages in them.
And on that bombshell, we can have.
It's not all bad.
On that bombshell, I think we can say that there is no clear agreement. But look, this has been a fascinating conversation, though, because you've really got me thinking. You really have. You both have. And as I say, Anna May, I mean, on the line of succession issue, I mean, I'm not with you at all on the abdication issue. On the line of succession issue, I am with you. But I do think the points that Rafe makes about having to think about the
wider.
wider concept of this. My worry is, Rafe, and I think you know this, people don't want to have an intelligent conversation about this. It's just about taking people down at any cost. But look, thank you so much. Fascinating conversation. The author, Anna May Mangan,
Thank you.
and the royal historian, and he is also senior fellow at the New Culture Forum, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Fascinating discussion.
debate.
Thank you both so much. Very respectful. Now look, we're moving over to Substack now for the Royal Uncancelled After Show, so you can sign up for much more royal discussion there at www.outspoken.live. And we are back every weekday, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Remember to hit subscribe. Right now on YouTube, you can also subscribe to us as a podcast. It is completely free. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.